Hi, I'm Dan Schinder.
And I'm Steven Schinder.
And this is a very special Yes Shift episode for so many reasons. What's one of them, Steve?
Well, it's been exactly 1 year today, July 11th, as we're recording this live, since we put out the first ever Yes Shift episode. The first two episodes, in fact, came out July 11th, 2021. So that's one of the things we're commemorating.
That's right. And the music you're hearing is from the album that we're featuring, Going for the One, which came out 45 years ago this month.
Yeah.
Last week, technically, right, Steve?
Well, it's kind of a question, because I've seen an article in Yes World say July 7th, but I'm thinking maybe that might be for the single, and I've seen other places that, like, July 12th was a UK release and July 15th is a US release, but in any case, it's around this time, and we figure we might as well, and the pun was just too good not to use. Going for the 1 year anniversary is the title of this episode.
Yeah, and I might have checked that up actually in the post, so I'll have to fix that. I thought it was a misprint for a minute in my haste to get ready for this. But we'll go ahead and fix that, or you can while I'm talking if you want.
Yeah, no problem.
So what should we start with? 1 year of Yes Shift, or should we cover Going for the One first?
Well, Going for the One, like, there's a lot that can be said about. So I guess just let's spend a little bit of time sort of going over, like, the one, like, reflecting on a year of Yes Shift.
So for those who don't know, we'll talk a little bit about how the show came about. I've been a Yes fan since, I guess, 1971. Since Fragile came out, I was turned on by older cousins to the album, became an instant fan, been a huge fan of every lineup ever since. And Steve has been a fan since he was born, literally.
Yeah, basically.
Yeah, so in latter time, a year ago or so, before we started this, we would always talk about their music and the members and what current news is, and just everything you could imagine. And one day I remember where I was standing in the kitchen. We were on the phone having the conversation. And I said, we should do a podcast about this. And I think you said, really? You would do that? I said, yeah, we talk about this all the time. There's just so much. So that's how it came up. Maybe we'll skip over the original name and how that came up. Because that was a little controversial to some people in the beginning. But here we are a year later with Yes Shift. Yeah. What are some of your favorite memories or episodes, Steve? And did you think we would do this for a year, almost every single week, sometimes more than one episode a week? We've got the regular episodes. This is number 52. And we've got, a couple dozen news desk episodes?
Yeah, we've got... This is a 52nd numbered one, so that worked really nicely because 52 weeks.
Oh, wow, I didn't even think of that.
Yeah, and 17 other episodes we labeled News Desk editions. I know we say News Desk Report in the episodes, but, like, whatever. And I know there's also one other episode that we labeled Facebook Live Update, and that was when we were announcing that we were doing these through Facebook Live from now on, because in the beginning, we were recording, like, beforehand. This is probably in May of last year. We were thinking of, like, recording the first few episodes that sort of build up a backlog. And then around the time that The Quest was announced, I was like, we really should, like, start releasing episodes now that this is going on, and we need to talk about it. And so that's when we put out those first couple episodes, and there's the whole name thing. I'll just read this quick comment on our post from Paul Graff, who said, "When I first heard the title of this podcast, I heard it with one letter missing. I thought, okay, that works. Keep up the good works."
Well, thank you. Thanks. I must admit, I'm still fond of the original name and what it truly stood for and meant, but a lot of people just didn't get it. And I have a confession. Like I went
Oh boy.
soft. I went soft because when I told my wife, she was like, "Oh, please, they are not really upset about that." I said, "Some people are like really upset about that." Our friend Mike Tiano was very upset. He was in the very front of the pack with a pitchfork in one hand, a torch in the other. Bless his heart, wanting the best thing for us, the band, the fandom, and I, my wife and I, Anja said, and there's no way we're caving just because some people have a problem with it. And you know what? I ended up caving. And I don't think I've ever caved on a business decision like this, but there was something about it where I just felt, and you were in favor of, let's just change it. And I thought, yeah, it's not that important. We could call it yes fuckity doodle farfignugan if
Oh
we
my
want,
gosh.
you know?
Right, and I do think it was a good choice, like adding that extra
and
letter.
and that was your
I
idea because you said it really ties in with the theme of the show, and that's to talk about the many shifts that the band has been with. And as you know, Yes fans, they've never gone more than two albums in a row with the same lineup. We'll see if they break that record. They've had constant. It's been a revolving door, like Jethro Tull. It's been an institution. There's been 27 members, I think 29, not
Yeah.
counting Francis Monkman.
Oh my
And
gosh, we
and
should retire that joke like right now, like we said we would.
oh,
Just
okay, well, it's a
yeah.
year anniversary, I guess so. But yeah, you
Right.
thought of the name change and it works. So kudos to you for that.
Yeah.
Favorite? Yeah, go
And
ahead.
we've had Mike Tiano on the show a couple of times, so like everything's like cool and everything. And I actually prefer this name that we have.
I do
'Cause
too.
yeah.
Favorite
And,
episode? Favorite memory?
favorite episode. That's a really tough one because we put out. I mean, this is gonna sound like kind of patting ourselves on the back, but we put out a lot of great ones.
And
Um,
not just due to us. The fans were part of the idea, contribution, topics, conversations, but there's been like you said, a ton of material, and I don't think any topics were lame. The news desk things about the periphery of Yes, with other Prague stuff that they're connected to, and all of that. So it is hard to decide. So let's divide it into three categories: news desk, regular episode without a guest, and with a guest.
right. So regular episode with a guest. It's kind of tough because okay, so the most surprising guest that we were able to get, and I know this is also Drum Talk TV, but getting Bill Bruford on the show, that like talking to Bill Bruford was something I honestly thought would never happen because he kind of in retirement he seemed like he'd keep to himself, but because of the box set and Sharon reaching out to us and other people for interviews, and it all came together. We were able to talk to him, so that was a huge surprise.
And as a lifelong drummer of 52 years playing, and Bill being on Fragile, my first exposure to Yes, knowingly, anyways, that meant so much to me. And he was wonderful. He was just so nice and patient and so professorial and such a gentleman, and was great fun. He was just tremendous.
Yeah, and we've also had Oliver Wakeman on the show. It was so easy chatting with him, and it was like a really fun conversation. We got to talk about Frasier, and one that I knew. So one interview I wasn't talking to these guys. Someone like me has like at least a little bit of nervousness, like, oh, I hope I don't mess this up type of thing. But since we kind of know Billy Sherwood a bit better, like in person, sort of, I was like, okay, this is gonna be a piece of cake. And so, but what was surprising was what that ended up being, and just how like the reaction to it. And Billy, we were just like casually asking him about his career and that whole journey, and he told us like the whole story, and it got very emotional. And I'm pretty sure, like that, like on YouTube at least, that is our most viewed episode. It's got I'm looking right here. It's 1,116 views,
And for this
and
show, that's a lot. We don't really advertise outside that much of our own channel or outside Facebook. And Billy basically gave his Yes biography from beginning to end, from beginning to present, not end, beginning to present, and his whole relationship with Chris and that
right,
arc and how it really came about for Billy to be in the position that he's in, all from one question. And it was basically take us to the beginning of how you got connected with Yes. And he told us everything. And it did get emotional. And there's a few people that commented, this is the best interview I've ever seen of a Yes member. And that's all
it's
Billy.
so
He
humbling. Yeah,
yeah, because he told the story and we had great fun. We talked about his late brother, who I knew a little bit. I knew Billy since '98, and that was great fun. Those three
amazing.
are great. How about an episode, a favorite mention or two without a guest?
Yeah. So before I answer, I'm just look at the Anchor stats, and it's
Sorry.
also our most listened to episode there. So
Oh wow.
there you go. But favorite without a guest. Um, yeah, that's a really tough one. Like I know we're like fresh off talking about Elias of Sun Halo. That was a very lengthy discussion. But it might be our review of The Quest, possibly,
Interesting.
because that was our first time on the show talking about a new, like, completely new Yes product, new songs, and that episode like went on forever, like almost 2 hours or something crazy like
Jeez,
that.
really? I
Yeah,
don't
maybe
remember that.
it's probably our longest one, but it was just getting into the weeds of it, talking about the new release and how we felt about it, and
Yeah.
like the reaction and stuff.
And then the whole
But
follow up to it with the bit of controversy and everything.
oh yeah, that was in the lead up to it. Yeah,
Oh, okay.
but
And what do I remember correctly that did we do our own Yes Shift tribute to Alan White, or did we just simulcast the one on Drum Talk TV to
we
Yes Shift? I Why don't I
we
remember that?
we did different tributes for both. So you did
Oh, my
your
playing tribute in the
yeah,
studio.
you're playing tribute for Drum Talk TV, and then we had um our memorial tribute, and later we
That
did one
was
on
my
his
favorite.
birthday about Ramshackled. Yeah.
Yeah, and my favorite was our memorial to him. That was my favorite ever. For those of you who don't know, I knew Alan since 1989, and he was a big supporter of Drum Talk TV. He was on the show 5 or 6 times. We gave him our first Drum Talk TV award, the Prague Legacy Award. He hung out for 2 hours at our booth at the NAMM show after that, signing autographs and memorabilia for about 200 people. Just a really wonderful man and a great musician, and a huge influence on me personally. So that has to be my favorite show without a guest. What about
Yeah.
the news desk report? Do any of those stand out? And I'm sorry, you're going to say something else?
No, I was actually about to answer the news desk one.
Okay.
Um, um, oh gosh, it's tough to like narrow them down because I'm trying to remember like what did we do? Because we talk about multiple things within
Yeah.
each one, but I feel like there was one back in I think we put out like at the end of January where it included a tribute to John Wetton, and we're covering news about an upcoming book in that, right?
Yeah,
Like
that's
I
correct.
do remember us like doing something. Oh, like that was one of the things we covered, and there was some Asia talk on there as well. I think it was regarding like the lineup for their upcoming tour, which got delayed to next year. I don't know if we'll talk about that now or save it for the next news desk edition, but yeah, I think that one that ended with like the John Wetton stuff might be my favorite so far out of the news ones.
Yeah, I think that's a big standout for me too. We have more guests planned, by the way, and some returning guests planned, by the way. So thanks for supporting us for our first year. It's been a lot of fun. It's been a great passion project. Neither of us have time for this, I might add.
Yeah, I remember we used to, when we pre-recorded these, we would try to release them on Sunday, and then sometimes it'd be like other days. And now it's just, oh, we just record live whenever we're both free.
So much easier.
Yeah, it works better since we don't have to edit as much or worry about that. And I feel like we've learned how to like do certain things better. Like speaking for like myself on the news episodes, I feel like there are some things where I wouldn't realize how maybe I was not managing the time for some of the segments. Like, so I feel like over this past year, we've kind of got it down to a science. Like, okay, how much time should we spend on this compared to that? And, you know, sort of like balance it out.
Yeah, we worked through it because we never really planned this out, folks. And if you watch Drum Talk TV, you know none of that's planned. But we just kind of felt our way through, and hopefully over the year we've improved. So it's been a lot of fun, and I want to thank you, Steve, for putting so much work into the notes. We use a little bit of show notes. We have a guide, but we don't discuss anything before an episode other than agreeing on what the topic is going to be. Other than that, we don't discuss anything. So our conversations are truly organic. And, you know, maybe at some point in our life, we've had a discussion about an element, but we don't say like, okay, so I'm going to say this. And then we just don't do that.
Yeah. And another thing I love about this show is that it's opened our eyes, pun intended, to a bunch of other things that Yes Men have worked on or guested
That's
on
true.
and stuff. Like, you know, Billy being on Mike Tiano's Creatus Fan. We talked about that.
Where Chris's triple neck really came from.
Right.
He basically borrowed it and never gave it back. There's a lot of
I don't remember the context of that.
Patrick Moraz discovering Jeff Berlin for Bill Bruford. I mean, all sorts of interesting things.
Yeah. Oh, it was Roger Newell with the triple. Yeah. And you know, Lobate Scarp. You know, Billy and John Davison were on that. You have it all. I'm showing it right now. But like, the more I've listened to the album, the more when I think of the album, I don't think of it like in the beginning where I would be like, okay, John and Billy guess on that. Like, I think more of like, oh, it's like I listen to it and then I remember, oh, that's right, they're on this. I forgot.
That's good though. You're thinking of it for what it really is.
Yeah, and another thing another thing I've kind of learned is that sometimes we're gonna forget to mention something, and it just happens. And like for example, I forgot to mention on the Story of I episode that apparently some excerpts from that album, like Kashasa, were in the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy radio series.
Oh, wow, that's right. Yeah, and by the way, this is Patrick Moraz's solo album that Steve's referring to, in case you're not familiar with it. Brilliant album, brilliant.
Yeah, and Flight of the Morglade from Elias of Sun Hillo. I remember that in an episode of this reality show, like back in 2008, called Rob and Big, like season 3, episode 3, Mini Horse Road Trip. Oh, because I looked it up beforehand.
Oh, okay.
A bit. I remember a bit of it appeared like midway through it, but they added like a drum beat to it, so it was kind of like a remix type of thing. And
that's interesting.
Bizarre. So yeah, there are like some things that I remember after the fact where it's like, oh, I forgot to mention that. And you know, sometimes there's an organic way to bringing it up in a later episode. Maybe not like here, but other times you just have to like let it go.
So some shows are made up of a series of outtakes. We'll make episodes once a month that are called left outs.
Yeah, why not? But
cool.
Yeah, it's surprising. Like I knew we'd make it this far, but it's still like bizarre. Like thinking back, like it's already been a year.
How quickly it went by. Yeah. We'll wait till you're my age. In my world, it was like 3 months ago. Well, happy anniversary, son. You've done a great job.
Yeah, you too. Thanks.
Sure. So we'll move on.
Yeah.
Here we go with talking about an album with this soundtrack as the soundtrack. Title track. Here we go. Oh, what a great song. I listened to 5 seconds of it before we started the show, folks. And then I told Steve, oh my God, it's stuck in my head like it's a small world now.
Yeah.
So let's start with, well, you lead. Where do you want to start? You want to start with the album cover? We usually start with the packaging, the outside. But it's up to you.
Yeah, well, before we do, let me read a comment from Nick Zales or Zales, however it's pronounced. He says, I saw the tour in Madison, Wisconsin, but it was really the next two tours that they went into orbit. So I guess he's referring to the Tormato tour, which
78 and 79, yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, we've kind of talked about the cover before, how Roger Dean was expected to work on it and was supposed to meet with a band, but somehow ended up only meeting with John. And it sounds like the Flights of Icarus painting was what he presented, but then John, for whatever reason, didn't like it and wanted something else. And then that they ended up going with this hypnosis thing with like the city and the guy, and it's
so
yeah.
I'm showing the whole cover folded out from the outside right now, and first of all, the buildings, there's two of them, and they are the Twin Towers at Century Park East and West. That's in Century City, which is next to West LA. And I'd been in one of those buildings many times because years ago in the early to mid 80s, I had a glass etching and glass carving business. And I had a project at one of the residences in one of those buildings. So I'd been there many times, and it was cool, you know, seeing something from the home area being on a cover of such an iconic band's iconic album cover. And it was not until, okay, I have an embarrassing confession. Are you ready for this, folks? Steve, I don't know if you know this. I may have mentioned this to you. So the Butt Cheeks guy, which, by the way, when Rush's Hemispheres album came out, I wondered, hey, why is it going for the one guy on the Rush album? Did he leave Yes and come to Rush? Like, what's going on there? But it wasn't until probably 3 or 4 months ago I realized that the Butt Cheeks represent parallels. Just like the architecture. I swear I had no idea what the reference was until like 3 months ago. I'm 59 years old, and it took me that long since the album came out. I remember buying the album. I remember where I was listening to it for the first time. It took me all these years. That's one less thing that keep me up at night, though, which is great. But I still don't know why he left Yes and went to Rush.
Yeah, I don't know that that's the case, but anyway. Well, like, I guess with the cover, I wonder if like the lines, like some of the lines intersect, but a couple of them are parallel to each other. So I kind of always wondered if that was like supposed to be a reference to the song. But overall, it is like a really odd choice. And, but
well, if you look at the album cover, those ribbon-like designs, there's 5 of them, and there's 5 songs on the album. So I wonder if that's what they represent, if each one of those designs represents a song. One's quite short, that's probably Wondrous Stories. The longest one that goes up from the left and around and down into his head. That's probably Awaken. I'm guessing. I'm just guessing. I've never heard them talk about this. I'm just hypothesizing that each one of those separate designs might be representative of a song.
Yeah.
I was a little disappointed when the album came out as far as the cover because I was so sucked into the Roger Dean world, and we get Tales from Topographic Oceans, an amazing gatefold. Then we get Relayer, an amazing gatefold. And then you get this. Pictures of buildings with butt cheeks.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe he's lost in the city, like in Heart of the Sunrise, but
Or City of Love with his clothes off. I don't know.
right. But I mean, this isn't really that important, but I think the stream is looking like a few minutes behind us, but it doesn't look like there are pauses. So I guess we'll just go with this.
Okay, yeah, I saw one little jump as I looked down at the little monitor, and the millibytes per second is really slow. You read a comment that seemed to come in on time, so folks, hopefully we're okay, and you're not holding this.
That was from an older post. But,
okay. It was right when we started talking about the album. But we don't own the internet. We don't control the internet. So I'm sorry if the internet sucks.
Right. I mean, in any case, we'll be able to post this after the fact and whatnot.
Yeah, it'll archive right away, and then we'll also put on the other channels. But
yeah, but as for my, I guess when I first got into the album, so of course I'd heard the excerpts in the Yes Years documentary. I'm pretty sure all songs were in there in some form, except maybe Turn of the Century.
Correct.
And it also had like the Going for the One sessions and excerpts of the Wondrous Stories music video, which is pretty straightforward. They're just performing on a stage in some sort of studio or something. But my first time listening to the album in full was when, for my 9th birthday, you sent me Relayer and Going for the One on CD, and it was like the 2003 remastered versions, and it even got like it's still got like this little ad for like In a Word, Yes, like out now. So
wow.
I get kind of nostalgic. Like,
I was just gonna say that's nostalgic. That's a little collector's item there, especially because it says out now. That dates it.
So it was a real contrast, the Relayer cover and the Going for the One cover, but I listened to them, and listening to Going for the One, it's like, oh wow, I recognize a few of these songs, and add the bonus tracks like the instrumentals, Mantra's theme, Vevey revisited, Chris doing Amazing Grace on the bass, and some rehearsals of some of those songs, so you get to hear like sort of stripped down versions of them before they knew what they needed to add.
The run-throughs.
And there are actually a lot of versions of Vevey. Like, I guess John and Rick did some instrumental stuff, and they just trickled them out as tracks under like the same title. Like, there are a couple of those on the Yes Years box set, and I think one of them where John's on harp and Rick's on organ was in the Yes Years video, and it was named that in the credits.
That's right.
And there's probably like a few other demos of that footing around, and each of them sound pretty in their own fashion. But yeah, I feel like maybe apart from Union, Going for the One is one where you can really go on talking about like the behind the scenes stuff because of how much behind the scenes footage there is.
That's true. Yeah. So I have something I've never told you about the album regarding my thoughts is, how Rick Wakeman says that 90125 is probably the most important Yes album because that's what carried on the rest of Yes. So I think that Going for the One is just as important. And here's why. I think Going for the One might be the most complete package as far as a Yes album. And the reason why is because, again, we come off the heels of 3 amazing works of art that are all long form. We get the Close to the Edge album with 3 songs. We have a double album, 4 songs, one side each in Tales from Topographic Oceans. And then the superlative fusion-esque Relayer with a album cover that was almost devoid of coloration, basically. And then you get the return of Rick and an album that has songs for the radio, basically. But we still get Turn of the Century and we get Awaken, because after coming off those other three albums, how do you not still show off that you've got that prowess, right? So to
Right.
me, it's a very important album because it put them back on the radio. It exposed them to a bit wider audience, a bit akin to when Genesis started getting a little bit more commercial and pop oriented, if I may. Maybe with the Duke album, because you've got Misunderstanding, Turn It On Again. I kind of equate it to that, and that's why I think it's such an important album. And you have the statistics on the charting of the album, right?
Yes, I do. I wasn't sure if you want me to go into that now or
Yeah, I
like,
think this fits now since I brought up
right.
my feelings on the importance of the album. How did it fare in the US and UK?
So, from what I found, and this is from Wikipedia, it says the album reached number one on the UK albums chart for 2 weeks and number eight on the US Billboard 200. Wondrous Stories and Going for the One were released as singles. The former went to number seven in the UK, and the album was certified gold by the Recording Industry Association of America within a month for selling 500,000 copies.
Wow, within a month. That's great.
Yeah, and I found a website called bestsellingalbums.org, and if it's to believed, it has 726,380 as the number of sales. I don't know if that's like from a long time ago or if it's updated,
That's weird.
in but in any case, it's definitely like it had some commercial success, and Wondrous Stories was even in a Cadillac commercial back in 2007. It
It
was
was?
yeah, it's this weird. So a few guys are like in a car and listening to Wondrous Stories. So one of them's like, "What is this?" And the guy's like, "It's Yes." And we're like, "Who listens to Yes?" And so they pull over and ask a couple of women, like, "Excuse me, do you listen to Yes?" And they're like, "Yeah, they're classic rock." And they're like surprised that they know who Yes are.
Wow, I don't remember that. I don't think I ever saw that. That's a really interesting fact. I love that.
Yeah.
But that's my thoughts on it. What was your first experience with the album itself and the music? I mean, you mentioned when you got it when I sent you the CD, but what did you think of the music as you went through it?
Well, going for the
Oh,
one,
sorry. What was your context with Yes Music when you got it? Because it was different than mine. I was familiar with everything up until that point.
okay. Yeah, so up to that point, throughout the 90s, I'd watched the Yes Years documentary and 9012 Live as a kid. And
A
then,
million times.
yeah, and then when I was seven, or like, yeah, I think I was seven, I got the extended versions CD at Walgreens. Well, my mom bought it like after I spotted it, and it was basically the live tracks from Keys to Ascension 1, but without the revealing science of God. So it had Cyberinca True, America, Onward, Awaken, Roundabout, and Starship Trooper. So that was kind of
I love that you were
very,
7 and you were into that.
yeah, it was very formidable stuff. Because before then, like, the Rabin Yes was like my Yes, and you'd even play like this tape that had live tracks from the Talk Tour. But like that extended version CD, like those Keys recordings, like became so like ingrained in my head, and so and then I got the highlights, the very best of Yes, this weird compilation CD with an ugly ass cover, but it had stuff from like different different eras from the first album up to Big Generator, although it didn't showcase stuff from the Drama lineup or Close to the Edge or Tales. Like there are a few omissions, I guess.
Weird
But
omissions.
Yeah, but when I got around to listening to Relayer, like that was a whole thing. Like just a lot of it was new to me, and it was like
How old were you?
oh, it was my ninth birthday. Yeah. And then I listened to this, Going for the One afterward. And there was more familiarity from that. Going for the One, it was like, oh, it's from that part in the Yes Years video when they played it live. And Turn of the Century, even if I hadn't heard it before, sounded like I had heard it before. Like, again, I don't know if it was in the Yes Years video, but it sounded very familiar when I
It was
listened
not
to
in
it
that.
somehow. Yeah, and then Parallels I recognized right away as, oh, it's this song. And Wondrous Stories again, oh, it's this song. And Awaken, I was so used to the live 1996 version that listening to a studio version was like, huh, okay, it's different, but still that song. It was kind of weird because it didn't have that extra bit of keyboard stuff that Rick added in the keys version that
Right.
I got so used to.
Yeah. So
Um,
did you like it at all?
Yeah, I loved it. And you got to look at also the context of when this came out.
Yeah, what else was happening then? Led Zeppelin was touring. I saw that tour. That was my first concert.
Yeah, Rush had released their first live album in September '76, All the World's a Stage. Genesis released Wind and Wuthering in December '76. Pink
Wait,
Floyd
did Going for the One come out in 76 or 77?
'77.
Okay, that's what I thought. Okay. And Rush came out with Farewell to Kings in 77.
Yeah, and Pink Floyd released Animals in January of '77. And Kansas was kind of like in between. Like they released Leftoverture in October '76, and then Point of No Return October '77. A landmark album for
Yeah.
them. So there were kind of some changes in the music scene. Like I think Going for the One feels the most punkish out of these songs. In fact, it feels kind of out of place to me in a way compared to the others.
Is it because of the slide guitar work? That and the beat is very Chuck Berry-ish. Dun dun dun
Yeah,
dun
it is
dun.
very Chuck Berry. It's very rock and roll. Yeah,
Yeah.
spot on. But I like it. It's very upbeat, and well, I kind of want to go into the some of the because I feel like we've talked about Patrick with some of these other solo projects, and I kind of want to like go into this little detour of like what was the extent of his work with this album before they got Rick back, if I
Because there
may.
was some overlap, personnel overlap, and project overlap, and then there are some interesting kudos I want to give to the album after that.
Yeah. So, according to Patrick, and this comes from a 2002 Notes from the Edge interview with Tim Morse, who, funny enough, like Tim Morse, part of the Yes tribute band Parallels, they put out an album about a month ago called Awaken. It's on their Bandcamp, and I'll mention a bit about that later. But
Maybe we'll save that for a news desk episode because it's so good. It's worth a whole conversation.
okay, yeah, we can do that.
Yeah, you sent me that earlier, and I had time to skim through, and I was like, "This is as good as most Yes lineups I've heard."
Yeah.
We'll get to that. That should stand on
Okay,
its own.
yeah.
It's that good.
All right, yeah, we'll do that. But that's also another example of how some of the song titles are good to be used for like other things. Like there's also that tribute band Awaken that we've talked about on Drum Talk TV's tribute to the tributes.
And I make a
So,
really great
yeah.
5% for nothing sandwich.
Yeah. But so Patrick in that interview said John was finishing Eliza Sunhillo, so the band would sometimes rehearse without him, and they were rehearsing not just for the '76 tour, but also figuring out new material. And of course, they played excerpts like High Vibration, which would end up in Awaken. Wondrous Stories was also featured. And then in October of '76, they arrived at Mountain Studios in Montreux, where Emerson, Lake and Palmer still hadn't finished Works Volume 1.
Which they started in 1964.
And so, and that's another band that like they kind of had a break between studio albums. Like it'd been a few years since brain salad surgery, so it's kind of
Yeah.
parallels there, I guess. And so Yes had to wait around for them to finish, and they went to a rehearsal space nearby for 2 to 3 weeks before finally going into the studio. And Moraz adds, in his words, that's where all the arrangements and the riffs for the middle of Awaken came from, and actually most of that song came in some shape or form after those times and other pieces as well, like Wondrous Stories, Parallels, etc. Not so much going for the one itself, maybe that came later. I think I even have some of my notes for Turn of the Century on manuscript paper somewhere, every note of it.
Wow. And
Yeah, and
Alan
there's
was
also
sorry, go ahead.
Oh, and we've mentioned before how there's also been that speculation that that early demo of Does It Really Happen might have Patrick on it. Like it might be from this era.
Right.
But yeah, go on about Alan.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure Alan had some contribution to Turn of the Century, especially according
yeah.
to John. Yeah. So that's so interesting. The weirdness of Yes never ceases to drop my jaw.
Yeah, Mraz says that he was with the band until late November. He says late November, early December. I think it's probably late November because all this stuff that happens later seems to happen like really quickly. So in the 1982 Dan Hedges book, Yes, an authorized biography, John is quoted as saying that Patrick just wasn't playing like he was involved, and he thought that his sound didn't quite vibe with the rest of the band at the time, which is interesting because in one of those Elias of Sun Hilo interviews that I mentioned before, John was saying that like each of the members like had different perspectives, and so working with Patrick and the other guys like adds something neat to the band. So I guess things sort of changed over time. It's really weird, but
And then we've heard the account that Patrick left or wasn't with them anymore. Two other accounts where Chris said his music just became way too superlative, and another account says that he just kind of stopped showing up and disappeared.
Yeah, there's a December 8th issue of Circus where Mraz mentioned enormous psychological pressures at the time within the group. And on Patrick's next solo album, Out in the Sun, which came out in 77, one of the songs on there, Time for Change, he says at the first minute and a half, this was in a Something Else Reviews article that I read, he says that the first minute and a half or so is kind of what he had in mind for Awaken, and I can totally imagine
You can
like,
hear it.
Yeah, it has like that spacey vibe that meshes well with the beginning of Awaken. Like I could imagine that before John comes
Yeah,
and
the
sings.
chord changes totally go with the high vibration, go on
Yeah.
to the sun. It totally does those same shifts. So I don't mind him taking credit for that because you can hear it.
Yeah, but in any case, Patrick seems fine with Yes. Like
Yeah.
he's
He's showed up for shows. I saw him backstage at the Forum Club at the Union concert. He seems totally fine with it all.
Yeah, I do kind of wish if he did some of this writing, I do wish they'd credit him on some of these songs. But again, I don't know like the full extent. It's just, it's just.
I don't think
whatever,
anyone
I
else
guess.
does in the band either. I don't think there's any way to ever get a clear story, especially with Chris gone.
Right.
But, interesting. Is there any more on that topic?
Well, I guess we get into Rick coming back. So he had just finished recording White Rock,
Which I
and,
have on vinyl in my cabinet. Did you know that?
Oh, no.
That's the first Rick Wakeman album I ever had. It's on vinyl. I got it the year it came out.
Oh, wow. Yeah, if I knew that, I must have forgotten. But yeah, that's really neat.
Yeah.
He was brought on as a session musician, but Brian Lane and
Which
Chris
is
Squire,
weird.
like, yeah, Brian Lane, Yes manager, and Chris Squire quickly convinced him to be a full member. And unbeknownst to him, Lane had already told the press that Rick was back, and he saw the paper, and he's like, well, what if I had said no? And Brian's like, well, that's sort of the decisions you gotta make as a manager.
That's right.
That was on December 4th issue of Melody Maker. So all this happened like
Real
really
fast.
quickly. Yeah.
Yeah. So it begs the question. I wonder for how long they discussed in the background when, if any weirdness was going on with Patrick and for how long they were talking about, should we get someone? Should we get Eddie Jobson? No, let's get Rick. Or, what's Keith doing? I wonder for how long and what those discussions were, because it could have been, okay, that's it for Pat. Call Rick. It could have happened like that, but I don't know. Sounds like they might have had something sort of ready to go. I don't know.
Yeah, and this is something I don't really think about, but this was the first time since Yes had been recording studio albums that they got a returning member.
That's true.
In their first few months during early gigs,
and he's returned the most times more than any other member.
Yeah. Yeah, because, there's that whole, like, in their first few months, they had Bill leave and got replaced it for a little bit, but that was before they became big and did, like, studio albums. So to the general public, this was the first time a Yes member had left and returned. Yeah.
Yeah. Interesting.
And the next time that would happen would be for 90125, where we'd get two Yes members returning,
That's
Tony
right.
Kaye and John Anderson.
That's right. Wow, the habits that formed. Before we go on, I do want to mention a couple things. I mentioned already that I think it was a very important album for Yes, coming off of those three epics in a row, and then satisfying radio airplay and those types of music listeners, and just that whole thing. It was a huge world tour, all of that. The other thing that I want to say about this album is it might have the best vocals ever of any Yes album. The best harmonies. There's 3 songs, Going for the One, Parallels, and Awaken, that have lyrics just juxtaposed against each other. And my drum student, Marty, who's 16 now, was 15 when he started with me, he learned Parallels. He started a month ago. And the first thing he said to me after I sent him the link, I said, so did you listen to it, start playing it? He says, yeah. He said, the vocals are amazing. So even he recognized that. I think the vocals on that album and the lyrics are so positive, with Going for the One and Parallels. Wondrous Stories is beautiful. Awakens me. And you listen to all those juxtaposing lines and harmonies, and that is, if there's one example of classic Yes vocals, it's any one of those 3 songs. And using those instances as demonstrations, in my opinion.
Yeah, the vocals are definitely amazing on here. If you had to rank these 5 tracks, like from favorite to least favorite, what do you think your order would be?
Why do you do this to me? Well, Awaken's one of my favorite songs ever. That's going to be played at my memorial. Awaken's right. My song. So that's number 1. Number 2, it's really tough between Parallels and Going for the One. I'm going to say Parallels. And I love the live version with Rick playing the solo on the Mini Moog instead of a church organ sound. I just think that's awesome. Okay. I love that. And then Parallels, Going for the One, but Wondrous Stories is a beautiful song. And that's me and Enja's song. I'm gesturing that way because she's out that door, down the hall, around the corner. And Turn of the Century, I think, is the only song I've ever heard in 59 years, 3 months, and 9 days of my life that has brought tears to my eyes. I don't think any other song has done that. So after those first 3, I don't really have a least favorite. Those other 3 are special to me for different reasons. I love the lyrics and the harmonies of Going for the One. And the slide guitar work is just so melodic, and it's not just a bunch of country slide stuff. You know what I mean? So that's such a difficult question for this album. A lot of albums I don't have this issue, which makes me sort of reflect on the fact that I think this album ranks way up there for me, way, way up there. In fact, if I may, it could very well be Tales, Close to the Edge, and this album are my top 3 Yes albums.
Oh wow, ahead of Relayer.
Yeah, as much as I love Relayer, but what edges it out in this case is, like I said earlier, the fact that this has the total package. This is the first time since Fragile that they did shorter songs. So think of how many albums and years and tours went by. So
yeah, definitely.
it kind of goes back to an original album format, not what they turned an album format into, where everything became long form. So they have that one long form song, a shorter long form song in Turn of the Century, and then 3 great short songs, one completely different from everything else on that album. So again, complete package. The only thing lacking, no Roger Dean cover.
Yeah, I knew you were gonna say
Yeah,
that.
and that's it. Other than that, the playing's great, the singing's great, the songs are great, the lyrics are great, the production's great.
Yeah, I feel like if we got that Roger Dean cover, maybe Awaken would have been the title track, because I feel like that song title fits better with what he had in mind, seemingly.
That's interesting. Yeah.
Yeah.
I almost
Also-
said, would a song that long be a title track, but Close to the Edge was. But that
Right.
was 72. This is 77. I don't know how much the music industry did change a lot in those 5 years, as you pointed out,
Right.
talking about the context of what else was out by whom, at that time. So I don't know, but that's a great point. How about
Yeah,
you?
so-
Are you willing to rank?
Oh yeah, it's actually pretty easy for me.
Oh, really? Well, sock
Yeah.
it to us. And folks,
All right.
chime in. Folks, let us know for you as well. How does the album rank for you, and how would you rank the songs?
Right. So, least favorite for me, like, and again, I enjoy all of these songs, but least favorite is Going for the One. Again, it just feels a little bit out of place.
Really? Because
I
of
do
the
like,
50s rock and roll beat, etc. Yeah.
yeah, like I don't mind like that rock sound, but it just feels a little bit different from what I prefer, I guess.
Okay.
And then at number 4, I'd put Parallels. And then number 3, Wondrous Stories. I know like all the lyrics to that, and I can just sing along to it easily. And number 2, I gotta give it to Turn of the Century. It's just so emotional, so
Excuse me.
tragic, so beautiful. It's
Yeah.
got those like Pygmalion vibes, and it's like just like all the dips that it goes through. It's just so beautifully done. And then Awaken, of course, is number 1 for me.
Yeah. Cool. Interesting. Yeah, that came
Yeah.
pretty easy for you to articulate.
Yeah.
Oh, one more thing, if I may.
Yeah.
Can I throw a song up on the screen while I talk about this?
Sure.
Okay, so let's show some of Parallels. And what I want you folks to pay attention to is I love their wardrobes. I just love them. Can't see them very well, but in Alan's North drums. I love Squire's suit, the black and white suit. I just love that. I forgot to mention when we showed the Going for the One clip. What are your thoughts on John Anderson's prop guitar?
It feels somehow it feels very him, I guess.
It
I don't
does.
know.
I just do not hear, even if you could hear what he was playing, I do not hear acoustic guitar with the whole vibe of Going for the One. But I guess he needed to keep busy.
Yeah, he needs to like do something while he's singing.
Yeah,
But it makes for a nice visual
it
at
does.
least.
And it's John, so he gets a pass.
Yeah. Before we talk about live stuff, how would you say Yes members working on their solo albums affected how they worked on Going for the One?
Well, cheating, I know that when we covered Fish Out of Water, Chris Squire's only solo album, surprisingly,
Apart
that,
from Swiss Choir.
oh, right. Um, the fact that Parallels was originally written for that.
Right.
So he found it completely adaptive to Yes, which it sure is. I love that song. Other than that, I mentioned when we covered Elias of Sun Hilo on the last episode that I heard Wondrous Stories fitting in with that. And I think John's experience with playing a lot of acoustic instruments and things could have influenced the whole feel of that song and possibly Awaken as well.
Yeah, and with Patrick's album, it had like a spacey vibe, and John's did as well. But I like to think that a little bit of Patrick at least might have at least partially influenced the spacey vibes and parts of Awaken.
Yeah, yeah, and with Steve Howe's album Beginnings, which is post and You and I from Close to the Edge, we hear him using the slide guitar in completely different ways, and I think that could have influenced his work on Going for the One.
Yeah.
And on his second album, actually, now that I think of it.
Oh, the Steve Howe album?
Yeah,
Interesting.
yeah.
Yeah, it really does feel like this is gonna sound weird, but I think because the album is a little bit eclectic, that makes it a bit reminiscent of Ramshackled. Although I guess you could argue that Tormato, being even more eclectic, feels
Yeah.
more ramshackled than Going for the One is.
And the big difference between Tormato and Going for the One is that we don't have an Awaken. We don't have an epic or long form piece on there
Right.
whatsoever.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, interesting.
Yeah, as for live play, this album got great representation on the Going for the One tour. The Glasgow show is a very famous one that people posted on YouTube. It's even gotten, I think Parallels might have been played at least once on the Drama tour, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, we found a bootleg of that not that long ago. You're right, and it was weird. It was weird, but it was neat to hear. Yeah.
Yeah, and we've mentioned the Keys stuff, and like some Going for the One stuff, of course, was featured in that sort of turn of the century, pun intended. Especially like during like Rick's next return after that, like 2002 to 2004. Like we got Awaken, and Turn of the Century was on songs from Songas, I believe.
Well,
and
Going for the One was.
Yeah, they opened with that. It was
Yeah.
really cool.
I don't remember
And-
Turn of the Century on that. Oh, yes, it was. I'm sorry. You're right. You're right.
Yeah, and they played all of Going for the One on when they started doing the album series in 2013.
Right.
And even Parallels, they dug up for the In the Present tour in 2008 when they had Oliver with them. And so they've
Did
also
they?
played some, yeah.
When
And
we
they've
saw
also-
them, they played that?
No, that was the next year, the Yes
Okay.
and Asia tour.
Okay.
But
Okay.
but yeah, like even in just the last several years, there's been some decent amount of Going for the One representation, I'm sure. And we even saw them play Awaken on the Yes 50 tour, and we've mentioned this before, but during the Master of Images section, we were both thinking John Davison sounds a lot like John Anderson in this moment.
He
And
sounded so much like him. He did a great job. I made it a point to tell him how great a job I think he did because
yeah,
we know he takes a lot of heat from people that have no latitude for anything outside the lines that they're used to coloring in. And I just thought he deserved those accolades because he was that good. He really was.
yeah. So in terms of favorite live versions of the songs, I'm not sure if I have an absolute favorite for most of them, but I do think a couple stand out for me for Awaken.
Mine's easy. I'm curious what yours are. You go first.
Yeah, we've probably talked about this before, but
I don't know.
um,
Maybe.
yeah, well, I might cheat on this. Like, I think for in terms of visual nostalgia, my favorite version to see is like the Denver show and the Union tour. You know, when they're in the round and there's that Elias symbol. Yeah, they have the snippet of that on Yes Years, and watching it in full years later was like I had unlocked something and just discovered like the full
Oh, neat.
puzzle, I guess. Yeah,
And there's a
but
version of it from when they played in Japan. There's that DVD from a Japan show.
oh, that was. I think you're thinking of the Shoreline Amphitheater show, though. It was released on Laserdisc in Japan, I believe.
Right. Okay, that's what it was.
Yeah, but in terms of audio nostalgia, the Keys to Ascension version is the one I know the best, and I just love how that one sounds. I think I know what your answer is gonna be, but yeah, go ahead.
Okay, so for parallels, I love the version on Yes shows.
Okay, yeah,
I love that, and that album gets hardly any mention. I love the version of Parallels there. I love Awaken from Keys Live, and my favorite version of Going for the One is probably Songs from Songas.
okay.
Wondrous Stories. I'm forgetting my favorite version. Do you know?
Um,
It's not the acoustic version from Songs from Songas, although I love that. It might be from what else was it on, Steve?
um, yeah, I'm not. I'm trying to think of like what other commercial release.
Yeah, I can't think of a
that
standout
you
commercial
recognize.
release. And Turn of the Century, I love from Songs from Songas as well.
Right. Yeah.
Did you hit any of them correctly?
Um,
You probably got
well, like,
Awaken right. Yeah.
well, for Awaken, I was thinking, okay, it's probably the Todd Mobile version. That
Oh, I
John
forgot
did
about
with
that.
Todd
Well, I was
Mobile.
thinking of Yes, though.
Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah.
the Toddmobile version, folks, if you're not familiar with that, YouTube search Toddmobile Awaken. It's amazing. It might be John's best performance of that.
Okay. Interesting. Yeah, because I don't think they played that on the symphonic tours. So having it with an orchestra
Correct.
here was like another chance at it.
Yes.
Like John was finally able to do that.
Yeah, I
Um,
agree.
Yeah, I gave that one another listen to see if it could potentially be my favorite. And, you know, I listened to it with headphones to get the full effect. The vocals are amazing. The sound's amazing. Like everyone is in top form.
Put the link in the
But
comments later for people.
yeah, I will. But the reason it's not my absolute favorite, and this is going to be a silly reason, I'm sure, is like at the very end when it's ending, it does not have the.
Oh, Steve's thing?
Yeah, and I know that's such a little thing, but it's
It's
just
not. That's not a little thing. That's the period, the iconic period at the end of that long story. Like, how do you, that's like having a fairy tale without the end at the end.
like right. I also quite enjoyed how ARW sort of made it the quieter section a bit heavier and like that whole thing. Like I thought they did a good job rearranging
Yeah.
that song. It's something I wish they'd done with some of the other songs as well. But yeah, it was cool seeing them perform that live and what they did with it.
Yeah, and I liked the Union version, But I liked the five classic members version better from Keys.
Yeah. I see that on Drum Talk TV. Patty Steamhard said, "Tough question." I'm not sure what that's in reference to, since that was a little bit ago, and
Patty, let us know.
the timing of the live is kind of
Off.
yeah, off. Like we mentioned, like again, we've not been free from technical issues this past year, but I like to think we've gotten better.
We've
least.
gotten past a lot of them. None of them were our fault. None.
Right.
Zero. Not even any. Nada. Zilch.
Right. So I feel like I'm trying to remember if there's anything else we need to touch on. What would you say is the legacy of the Going for the One album?
I think it's the first most commercially recognized album they put out. If there were no 9025 years, if there were none of that, this would be the most commercial album and would have been their commercial legacy. But
Okay.
obviously with
Yeah, because the Yes album and Fragile do kind of have a few tracks that, like they do have some shorter songs, but I guess I could see how you would think that
these
about
were more
this as
commercially
opposed to those.
accepted though,
Yeah.
and by a wider audience. And with Owner of a Lonely Heart and Changes and even the longer Heart, and that changed everything. But I think that the legacy of Going for the One is that it's really their first big commercial album, and it's the first most complete package. I mean, arguably you could say 90125 because of Hearts and Changes, and then you've got the other more commercial stuff. But I think that the answer is no. It's still Going for the One because Awaken is more in the spirit of and is done by the classic, what's known as the classic Yes members.
Yeah, you make some good points.
Thanks. What do you think? What do you think's the legacy of that album, other than
Well,
the butt cheeks?
Oh gosh. Well, I think Going for the One is the last Yes album that almost everyone can agree that they love.
Oh, wow, that's an interesting fact.
Well, okay, because after
I agree,
Going
though.
for the after like yeah, because after Going for the One, you have kind of a split. Like some fans still enjoy what comes after, but will say, but it's not quite as good as Going for the One. Or some people will just like they just fell off after Going for One, didn't really enjoy what came after.
Yeah.
And some might enjoy some albums after Going for the One more than Going for the One even, but the album is still looked back on as a classic peak, I guess you could say.
Absolutely. Yeah. It's the commercial window to that lineup.
Yeah. And it was also the third Yes lineup or not third Yes lineup, third Yes studio album to feature a lineup that had recorded before. And again, it's not like three in a row, but it's like
Right.
the third album by a lineup,
Right. Yeah, that's interesting. Huh. Fourth, if you count Yes songs.
Yeah, well, I was just thinking studio albums,
Yeah.
but yeah.
Yeah.
And it sounds like when you listen to this album, it sounded like everyone was having a good time. And it's even evident in some of what we see in the Going
video
for the One
footage.
sessions footage.
Yeah.
Yeah. They're just like singing Bob Dylan with each other and just seems like an all around good time.
Yeah. Cool. Folks, we'd love to know what you think on all these topics, especially Patty, who said tough question. I have a feeling it has to do with ranking the songs, because that's a toughie. But Patty, thanks for chiming in on the Drum Talk TV page. Thank you, everybody else, for watching on Drum Talk TV and on our Yes Shift page. And if audio is your thing, you like audio podcasts, you can follow us on anchor.fm/Yes Shift. We're on about 7 or 8 of the big podcast networks there. And
Yeah.
you can write us at yesshift